Hello, everybody. I'm Will,
And I'm Kristen.
and this is What are we watching?
Guillermo del
Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities.
Thank you once again, Super Yaki, for both of our t-shirts.
Oh, hey.
Yeah. This is the first time I'm ever wearing this one because it's the first Guillermo del Toro thing we've done since I bought it. So
I knew nothing about this, like nothing, as evidenced by the fact that I didn't even know what it was called, and I just trusted you. Because you were like, are we going to do it? And I was a little bit, like, annoyed because I was like, we're going to have to do, like, 2-hour-long things.
It's, like, 4 days in a row.
So it's like, I'm coming back and forth, and we still have our regular things, which is apparently too much. So I like, didn't know, and you're like, I really think we should. And so I was like, okay, that's fine.
He's great. We love so many of his movies.
Sure. I was feeling, like, overwhelmed. I am so glad. This was so good.
Yay!
This was so... Did you like it?
I loved it.
It was, well, and I mean, that's saying a lot, because it was rough.
It was a racist.
What did the dog say? Woof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 50 minutes.
Yeah.
It was really tight. Lot 36, episode 1, I guess. This is an anthology series. Man, I tell you, we're going to dive in a second, but we love American Horror Story. It is some of our bread and butter. But it is getting straight. Yeah. Just like, I don't even know, between the Midnight Club.
Slammed on.
Yeah. I knew that this could be done. Because, hello, The Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
Like, Outer Limits, Creep Show, Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
Goosebumps. I mean, I know it's a book series, but still.
No,
I feel like this should be, you get an artist with, like, a brand, with, like, a prose, and then you give us, like, some horror. And frankly, I'm curious because these are all obviously seemingly going to be horror or like spooky, but it feels like we're kind of doing slightly different things.
That's where I think the Guillermo del Toro comes in. I think that everything's going to be just left of center in a way that it's like, I'm excited.
Because even name dropped the Fiji mermaid in the opening. And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's like, it's obviously kind of like weird, but like, it's not necessarily, I don't know, it's very interesting. So, this one was, Lot 36. It was Tim Blake Nielsen, who's great.
He's amazing.
I love actors and actresses that just sort of do amazing work.
He also he's such a good character actor. Yeah. He's like always flying under the radar of things. He's always there in the background, just like doing stuff. And he was in one of the most recent Coen Brothers thing, the Ballad for Buster Scruggs. He was pretty good in that as well. He's just in the opening section, but
he's like a lunatic in Kimmy Schmidt, and he he shows up in things, and it was really cool to see him headline something.
Yeah.
The story was because we came out of the gate with
also they're all different directors, and this was Guillermo Navarro, who apparently is Guillermo del Toro's like longtime cinematographer. He did, which is Labyrinth. Pretty cool. Yeah.
So we came out right out of the gate in the 90s with H.W. Bush talking about Iraq. And I was like, oh, God, I can't.
Well, Desert Storm. We even had like clips of what they showed on the news of all of the like night vision, green, like missiles and stuff.
And then we got the immigrants are taking our jobs. And then we got Nazis. And I literally was like, I don't know if I can do this.
Yeah, I don't know.
It really managed to hook me and rise above that. And I mean, all of that stuff was character forming and informing, and it did a lot of work and a lot of the heavy work. And that's the thing that I think I'm the most impressed with by this first outing is the shorthand, the way in which they were able to sell us on who these people were and what they were about with just subtleties. Because even Demetrius Gross as Eddie, I loved Eddie from minute one.
Oh yeah, he was,
and I stayed.
Such a like burst of like livelihood,
energy, in what
liveliness, I guess.
Yeah, and what could really have been pulled down.
Well, it could have really been a thankless role, and he could have played it dour and but it was very like he's making the best of having this job.
It's the thing that we say so often, where it's like when someone can find ways to like imbue comedy or imbue fun into something that is not necessarily or needs to be, I really appreciate it. So we open with some old guy watching the news, eating a gross TV dinner, and then chopping up a gross animal.
Like it couldn't have been a squirrel because it was too big, but it was like some sort of animal
It seems like a misdirect, although, I mean, it was character informing.
Yeah.
He got shit done, apparently. It really, I mean, we could tell he was old, but it gave us that, like, the old world.
Yeah.
And then he had a heart attack. He had a storage unit. And so we then cut to Tim Blake Nielsen's Nick, who is still in the 90s. I enjoyed that. I mean, I think the timing, especially with the ties to, like, the Nazi stuff.
It works.
Yeah, well, I mean, is the implication that Roland and Agatha were...
I don't think that...
They were just occult people?
They were Nazis.
Okay.
I think they were just, like, involved in, like, they were neo-Nazis. Yeah.
I liked Agatha. I'm gonna stick with occultists.
I mean, two things can be true.
So, Nick is doing, it's like the storage wars where you bet on the storage units, and he owes money. They used every minute of screen time.
That's the thing that's so interesting, is that, like, this is obviously a very bubble of an episode where it all takes place within, like, probably 12 hours or so, but it also, you can kind of feel the ripple effects story-wise that, like, go out, and I really like that, because the guy comes to, like, beat him up and be like, you owe us 12 grand tomorrow, and it's just sort of like, that guy's still around, and they're gonna still be looking for money tomorrow, even though this is, like, over.
Well, and when they were going through the storage unit, you were like, this furniture's gotta be worth easily,
I mean,
but I was like $10,000 that he could get within hours.
Exactly, not to get tomorrow, but it's like there's definitely $12,000 worth of stuff in there.
What was the deal that Nick had with Eddie? It seemed like they were in it together. He just was giving him a heads up.
Skimming off the top, and he's the one that had the connection with Agatha, where he was like, go to her, she'll give you. Yeah, but
it was like they were working together. Where I almost thought that it was the con man thing, where it was like Nick was there to bid on things to drive the price up.
Oh,
that's
maybe.
What I thought was happening, but then I don't actually know.
I mean, I don't think so, given the fact that he still paid $400 for the thing. So.
I'm not sure, but it turns out that there was a woman. What was it?
Dottie.
No, Dottie was the sister. Amelia.
Oh.
There was a woman, Amelia, who Nick had potentially wrongfully gotten her storage unit.
Well, like, she had gotten evicted, but they sent the eviction notice to her old address, not her new address. So it was, like, all a mistake, but Nick already had it, and he had sold some stuff and thrown the rest of it away. Yeah.
And he was just terrible, like, bending over backwards, and again, as evidenced by the Rush Limbaugh-esque radio rant in the beginning, we know that he was not going to be sympathetic to her plight.
Because she's Hispanic.
And I mean, I will say that they did a good job of, I won't go as far as to say earning, because at no point other than Tim Blake Nielsen was I endeared to Nick. But he had that little monologue in, like, the second act, or the 2/3 of the way with Eddie, where he talks about how he was in,
he was in the shit, and he was like, he got injured, and then
it was very, when's it gonna be my turn type of thing. And I'm like, so again, by no means is that an excuse, but it's an explanation as to how he's this way. But...
Well, it's just how it happens still today, where it's like, you get brainwashed from, like, the time you're 18 into, like, joining the military and doing this stuff, and, like, going here and going to war, and then you go to war and you get injured and you get back and nobody gives a shit, and you don't get the medical care that you need, and your wife leaves you. And, so it's like, that's how Rush Limbaugh gets in there.
Considering that we started off with that this is a type that we are not even remotely interested in and sympathetic to. This production, the acting, the writing, the direction was able to sell me on the plight to the point where I at least was able to understand why it was happening. It worked. I was like, I can see how he's this terrible.
Yeah.
So he's going through...
Also, not for nothing. I mean, he was super shitty about it, and he shouldn't have been shitty about it, but legally the unit did belong to him at that point, which is the point he made. He was like, you don't have a claim to this shit anymore. Like, it's not my mistake, it's Eddie's mistake.
Sure. Well, yeah, but even Eddie was like, just let her go get her shit.
100%. He absolutely should have.
And so he goes through the storage unit, finds a bunch of, like, stuff.
Yeah.
There's some Nazi memorabilia. There's some... I think I like it. I'm unsure, because the way this in spoiler, going through it didn't really answer a lot of questions.
No.
It didn't necessarily need to, but I do like how, like, so he finds the candelabra, he finds the table, he finds the hair wreath, he takes it to a, there's a term for it.
She's an appraiser.
Sure, but who specializes in, like, a mystic of sorts. And they, like, hint at a lot of things. Like, they hint about the candelabra, where, because she talks about how it's shoddy craftsmanship and it's gold, but this and that. And then later, Roland is like, they bring him in. I'm torn between how much I'm recapping and how much I'm reviewing, but he equated that, like, the candelabra came from, like, unsavory means, and you were like, oh, it was from the teeth. They used to take the gold fillings and stuff. But the production didn't answer that question.
No, I just was like, ugh.
We were able to kind of connect a lot of dots, but that's something that I found interesting about
Could
this
also be
episode.
wedding rings. They took wedding rings as
sure,
well.
But I found it interesting about this episode, and it's little details like that are what made it rich and what really kind of pulled me in, that it felt like we were witnessing a small part of a larger whole.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, where it's like you can feel the, like, reality spooling out, because that man is going to come back tomorrow and look for his money, and, like, what's going to happen to him? What's going to happen to Eddie when he opens the office again in the morning? Now there's just, spoiler alert, a fucking demon. A tentacle demon.
I was curious, because, again, they didn't really answer it, because for me, I was thinking of it more karmically, that I didn't like Nick, so I didn't mind that Nick was going to get hurt, but I like Eddie, and so I don't like the notion that this could bleed over into Eddie, but I don't know. I want to know what Roland's endgame was, because he was charging. So basically, Nick brings the stuff to Agatha. She was fantastic. Whoever's instinct that was.
Her name is Martha Burns.
But she just sort of had this, like, black, almost like Victorian lady dress and, like,
Nana
hairdo.
Rose hair,
And Martha was playing it very weird, but not over the. I don't know. There was choices were being made left and right.
Subtly done.
And I was like, I want to know more about that. That's the thing. Is this was consistently pulling me in. Versus just keeping me at arm's length.
I completely agree.
And so we find out that the table was a seance table, and there were demon books.
It had a secret compartment.
Because that was also fun, too. That was interesting, the leap into the supernatural, and how Agatha and Roland were on the same page. We were on that page with them.
Nick was not even willing to open the book.
And that was just kind of so funny to me, what he was willing to tolerate. There was no, like, you mean to tell me?
Yeah.
He was like, give me my money.
Yeah. He just was like, absolutely not. Shut up about demons. Let's just find your book. I want $300,000.
So it turns out the guy, because the old man who owned this thing, he would visit it every day and do a little jig and go in there for like an hour and a half. So what was he feeding it?
I don't know. Or like maybe continuing to do a spell or something.
Because they never answered. There's a lot of unanswered questions. They didn't answer what the dance was.
But I love that kind
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
I maybe could have gone with one or two more questions answered, but I guess I'm a little bit superstitious, and if I were in Nick's position, I would have done the little hop.
Yeah.
But so it turns out that this guy, there was.
I'll bet the hopping was so that he could get over the lines of stuff.
But they were outside the.
Yeah, but I bet it was so that he could hop over the lines that were keeping the demon in.
Yeah, but the hopping he was doing was in the hallway of the storage unit.
Maybe just to like make sure he could do it before he gets inside, because he was so old.
I'll give you.
I'm literally coming to that now.
Yeah, you connected a dot. Yeah. I don't know that it's the exact that.
I don't think it's watertight, but
no, you helped me out there. I like that. I do, and it's things like that I think will make me think about it.
Yeah,
and maybe even return to it or want to come back for something else.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the books were like, there were 4 books, and they only made so many of them because they were supposed to be occult books for like catching a demon?
Yeah, or like making a deal with a demon or like defeating a demon.
And the fourth one was so hard to find because the fourth one always self-immolates once you've completed the task.
Yeah.
And it turns out this dude had somehow trapped the demon, and he did it by trapping it in his sister.
Rude. Poor Dottie.
The more I'm thinking about this, the more I'm like, that just leads to further questions.
What does that mean?
And so, yeah, he trapped this demon in his sister.
And then trapped the demon in his sister inside like a ring of
Mountain
red
ash.
Yeah.
Mountain ash.
Because that's what I was saying. I was like, I want to know what Roland's end game was, because he wasn't afraid enough.
So he wanted the fourth book, but I think it was like because I think what the one point was that if you can either trap a demon or make a deal with a demon, the fourth book doesn't immolate. So I think he was gonna try to summon and make a deal with the demon. Yeah.
A hail payment. Okay.
Yeah. That's what I think. That's what it seemed like.
So, yeah.
Because you're right, he was not scared enough. But I think if he was confident enough in his abilities to like have the fourth book and then be able to make that deal, then I think he felt like he was gonna be okay.
So Nick just blew right through that red ash.
Dude. My dude.
It's like he's never seen Teen Wolf or Sandman or any other
anything.
It was cool. The demon was a little Lovecrafty for my taste.
Sure. Well, I think some of them are kind of based.
I know that's... Yeah. I knew that was a thing, but I just... And tentacles, there's nothing about tentacles that doesn't scream demon to me, but...
Yeah.
That was probably my... I don't know. When dealing with Christian mysticism, I'm sort of like, let's keep things in a medieval art sort of place.
Okay.
I don't know. It was interesting. It was cool.
This one does say that it's based on an original story by Guillermo del Toro, so we'll see going forward.
But it was fun, and so the demon gets out and chases him around, and Amelia is there to not let him out at the last minute.
Queen.
We love to see it.
We love
He'd given her
her
lock back, and so she used the lock to lock him in there. I'm not entirely sure what her end game was, if she was aware that's something else was happening. Who knows?
Who cares?
She could have been a bruja.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
But yeah, I don't know. It was, and it basically just ends with the demon eating him. Just hard done. So
incredible.
I thought it was. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was intrigued and impressed. So we're gonna go watch the next one, and then we'll be back after that. So
bye.